Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is the first place award winner of the 2015 New Orleans Press Club's Excellence in Journalism Award for the category of Best TV Sports Show.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, touch on all the home teams, the New Orleans Saints, New Orleans Pelicans, the LSU Tigers. We're going to try to get to Gus Kattengell's Tulane Green Wave as well. And we have a great panel as always. Gus Kattengell of ESPN 100.3, Katherine Terrell of the Times-Picayune and NOLA.com, and welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us as always. Appreciate you guys coming down.
Well, thanks for having us.
We always like to start off letting the folks know a little bit about what's going on in your professional lives. Katherine, tell us a little bit about what's going on over the Times-Picayune.
Well, as everyone knows, things are about to get really busy with the Saints in about a week. Free agency starts. I just got back from the Combine.
Yes.
I think I'm just now recovering from the lack of sleep.
Yeah, now how is Indy? I mean, because I hear it's kind of, speaking of sleepy, kind of a sleepy town.
I like Indianapolis. I didn't like it last year because it was literally -20, but the weather wasn't so bad this year, and it's kind of a cool town. You can walk everywhere, and it's not going anywhere soon. The Combine's going to be there for a couple more years. So, I mean, I've grown to like it.
Okay, there you go. And, of course, you guys are going to be starting your coverage of the draft. Free agency is on Monday, so, I mean, it's going to be all the way to the wall now for you guys.
Pretty full speed ahead. If you can believe it, teams that have new head coaches start their off-season training program in a month.
Wow.
So it does not stop. Yeah. But we're going to have all our mock drafts and everything over the next few weeks, and it should be interesting.
Always look forward to it. Gus, welcome back. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with you with the Green Wave and also over at ESPN 100.3.
Yeah, wrapping up Tulane women's basketball. I got the conference tournament this weekend, so I'll be going back to Connecticut, which I just was there over the weekend. And, hey, they beat UConn for the first quarter. I mean, it was legit. They won first quarter. Yeah. But, yeah, you got that. As far as the show goes, 11-1 every day on weekdays, and just try not to lose my head. You know, my cool, trying to cover teams like the Pelicans. And it's interesting, you know, I kind of have a little fun, you know, with some of Katherine's counterparts with the mock drafts, 1.0, 2.1s, 3. Whatever, because, you know, so I am. I pride myself on being the best radio station in covering mock drafts. So I have a little breaking news sounder. Absolutely. The second a mock draft comes out, because you have to have fun with it.
You got to set the bar low.
You have to. Well, it's like, you know, the Combine hadn't started and everyone's mock drafting and people are commenting. I'm like, we haven't had a workout or anything. And you saw firsthand the Combine is such an interesting thing for me, too.
It's weird.
You have like a guy like, you know, Treadwell, right, who's a receiver that everyone wants.
Yes.
He's not running a 40. He doesn't do this. Some quarterbacks don't throw. Some guys.
Well,
why are you there? You know, it's like, and I don't know, it's always find it interesting. And then you got the dude from Arkansas, the quarterback, his thumb tipped to pinky. He's getting a hand massage therapist. I'm like, oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm with Katherine. I'm ready for real football years. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Well, before we kick it off, tell the folks a little bit about Tulane. First of all, your thoughts about Dan, the AD, the new football coach, and then if you would, kind of morph into what's going on with the women's basketball team.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, the AD and Dan, and I'll say the thing that really, I guess, strikes me in the conversations I've had with him, whether it be on the court before a game or just in passing, very knowledgeable and knows what needs to happen. And it's fluid. It's let's get going. There's always a plan, and there's always a reason for everything that's happening. And look, it is what it is. You know, Katherine was doing a great job. Thumbs were moving, tweeting. You're tweeting right before the show. You have to know what social media can do. You have to know how that works. And he and Willie Fritz, I can see why he chose him as a head football coach. There's cameras all over now at Tulane University, capturing kids working out, capturing kids weightlifting, capturing kids studying, you know, in the playbook. The coach is doing that. Because kids do that. You know, when you're trying to go out with the recruits, you see that now. It's almost like a new phenomenon. I don't know if you've realized or seen this, Katherine, as well on Twitter, where kids are getting their offers, their letter offers for next recruiting class, and they'll put, hey, just got my offer today from LSU, and then like the emoji of a tiger, you know, and
they have to be seen.
Right, exactly.
Or whatever.
It's like you want to pump up, hey, I got another letter, my fourth letter. I'm like,
got to get that brand up.
Exactly, and it's so he gets that though. So you may not like it, but you have to be in that game and play it. So that's something that's it's night and day. I love Curtis. It's just two different organizations. One's running very, very professional. So.
What about the women's basketball team? Again, the conference tournament is this weekend. Your thoughts?
I think obviously you got Memphis on Saturday, UConn again on Sunday if you win. So I like the team, but it probably ends on Sunday.
Right.
Regardless, look, UConn's just a different beast and another animal. But as far as Tulane goes, I almost look at the future. This year they ran into an issue where for Temple and for Memphis, USF, which is second to UConn, which played them well, only lost by 20. And I say only, but they were leading most of that game at UConn earlier in the week. Very senior-laden team. Tulane has two seniors in Chinwe and Tierra Jones, and they're young. They're playing four freshmen together with Colby Morgan, who's awesome, who's a sophomore, and Leslie Forpol's a junior. I really think not only next year to go back dancing, they won't this year, but I've been telling people, it wouldn't surprise me if they like Sweet 16 it and go as far in this class as Coach Stockton's ever been. She's never been past that first, second round.
Let's shift gears, talk a little New Orleans Saints, and we'll start with you, Katherine. There was a report earlier this week, I think it was Alex Marvez, that said that the Saints would not be returning to West Virginia. We were told that Mickey Loomis ran right to the phone and called Greenbrier and says, we're coming, don't cancel the reservation. With that said, your thoughts on the Saints going back to train in West Virginia? Because you'll be packing and you'll be there for the for the entire duration.
Well, first of all, I do believe that report, and I think it caught the Greenbrier folks by surprise. So I don't know if Mickey ran to the phone or they did, but I can assure you some phone call like that probably happened. Whenever reports are changed, people want to say it was never true, and I don't believe that. I think they were considering it, and they should be. You should consider everything when you go 7-9 2 years in a row, and the Greenbrier is one of them. I personally think it's hard for the fans. They want to see their team. You can argue that the fans up north would like to see their team too, but I really think an ideal situation would be to split it, have half of the Greenbrier and half at home, and then you get the best of both worlds. You get a team that can kind of practice in a cooler environment, and then you could tough it out in Metairie with all the fans.
Right.
I just think it'd be better than spending 25 days there. Speaking as the reporter who will be spending 25 days there, there's very limited restaurant options in White Sulphur Springs, but it's a unique place. I mean, I like it, but 25 days is a long time for everybody.
Yep, no doubt. Gus, your thoughts on them returning to West Virginia?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Katherine. I was there year one. Last year I didn't go, and that's the thing that really stood out to me. I mean, it's fantastic after a day or two. It's nice, it's quaint, it's like a movie, you know, but you're waiting for Richard Gere to kind of be on set.
Like
it's
in
just,
the 50s.
Yeah, exactly. and look, and it's no thing to them. It is nice. I think what's interesting, I know she gets it as well, and we always talk about it, and you do as well probably on Twitter, and people call the show or chat with you, is whether or not it makes a difference on the field. And I think I probably said it this week in this way in the last 2 days. The Saints have been 7-9 the last 2 years, not because they went to the Greenbrier, because they didn't have good enough football players, and they suffered a lot of injuries. Could those injuries have happened here? There's a high probability some of those injuries had happened. It wasn't like it was the Greenbrier soft grass, you know, or it was the cold weather that these players suffered, you know, long sustaining flus or something. They just got injured, and they got injured either in games or they got injured at practice, and it wound up hurting them. She'll tell you that place is as manicured and taken care of.
Oh, definitely.
Believe me, they didn't suffer their injuries because of the field and things of that nature. So I think it's just fans trying to find a way or reason or the lay to blame. It's simple.
It's an easy blame.
Yeah, you bombed on drafts. You don't have good players.
That's right.
It wouldn't have mattered where training camp.
You know, guys, I look at it from a whole different way. Of course, I do cover politics and sports on my radio show, and I look at it as this. The state of Louisiana, the taxpayers of Louisiana supplement the Saints and the Pelicans. The taxpayers of Louisiana spent a tremendous amount in building a first-class facility for the Saints and Pelicans. Part of that facility needed to be an indoor facility, again, built by the taxpayers of the state of Louisiana. It was built with the understanding they were going to hold training camp in New Orleans. The training camp in New Orleans allows businesses to be able to, again, get the fans that are out there. They're going to go out, they're going to spend money at those businesses. Those businesses see a spike in their sales. Also, you get an opportunity, obviously, for the tax dollars to start turning over. That is a little bit of a payback for those of us taxpayers, that again put up the money for the facility, a facility that again is first class. So from my standpoint, I think they should be training here. They've been up there the last couple of years. I was hoping they were going to be able to come back. Again, the kids that want to see the team, a lot of those kids are in school by the time they get back to New Orleans, so it's a limited amount of time for the kids to come out there to cultivate new Saints fans as they're growing up. But my main deal is, hey, we made a commitment to the Saints from a tax standpoint to build a first-class facility in lieu of you coming and practicing at home, and now you're up in the Greenbrier, and we're not getting the bang for our buck. And the state is hemorrhaging right now in terms of money, and this could be a little bit of a boost in the summer for these businesses that rely on the Saints, and of course the state, which is relying on tax dollars. So mine is a little bit of, you could say that they were a little bit soft because they were up at Greenbrier. Look, that's conjecture at this point. I'm looking at it purely from a monetary standpoint.
I mean, I've talked to players who said this year's training camp was one of the hardest they've been through. I've talked to players who thought it was too hard because they did a lot of conditioning work and things like that, and it's just all about perspective. I wonder if they had gone Oxnard like I bet they wanted to before the Cowboys kind of locked that down, would people be so upset because it's not a resort? Right. I don't know. I mean, either way, I think there is some aspect to the team building part, getting them away from all of that. But I also think that fans have the right to see their team. And I think when they first went up there, they came back earlier, so the fans got a little bit more time. And this year was, what, 4 practices? I think they deserved a little more than that. And, I totally understand why people would be upset about that. They want to see their team because not everyone can afford to go to a game.
And the thing that's interesting, too, is as you bring it up, you do have the right to see them. There's no doubt about it. And does it help benefit? And, as you said, there were some players that said it was tough. And with the new CBA, you can't have 2-a-days here. So it's not like,
how tough can it be?
Exactly. You can only make it so tough. The only thing that will absolutely happen is it's going to be hot as you know what. Right. And you're going to have the longer water breaks, as Sean says. And let's be
recovery
honest,
time
guys,
is a little more difficult too.
Exactly. And if we do, and I know you're probably a huge gardener and mow the lawn and you're always outside. Yeah, exactly. Dude, you cut the grass and you're dying. And I mean, it affects you, right? You have to have longer water breaks and you're a little weaker and things of that nature. So from that standpoint, I look at it from a guy that likes to be outside and works out. Yeah, that kind of weather, I can probably go a little longer and everything. But again, you don't make the playoffs. Fans don't get to see them. You're talking about businesses aspects of it and how that can affect monetary money from the area businesses where fans that'll come in and eat lunch, maybe at those places. I think at the end of the day, they go back because there was 1 year left on the contract.
I agree with
I
that.
agree with that as well.
I think next year we'll probably see a change. I really, really do. Just no matter what their record is.
Yeah, so do I. And look, we'll see what happens down the line. But remember, the Texans practice in Houston in the heat. Jacksonville, Miami, and Tampa Bay, all in the heat of Florida. Right. And for a long time, this team practiced in the heat, whether it was here or in Mississippi. So, it is what it is. My deal is, we made an investment in this team. We make an investment every year. Let's see a return on our investment. That's my take on it. Hard Knocks. I can just see Sean Payton squirming right now because he knows it's coming down the pike. I got to believe that it would be a monumental upset if the New Orleans Saints are not chosen to be in Hard Knocks. Maybe it's a little of Roger Goodell saying, I'm going to stick you in the eye one more time, Sean Payton, but I'm of the opinion it's going to happen. I'm happy it's going to happen, honestly. You look, and I'm not a real big fan of Hard Knocks. It's not like I'm sitting in front of the TV every time it's coming on, but I do watch it from time to time, as I'm channel surfing. But I think the fans would like to see it. I think as a media member, you'd like to see some of the stuff on the inside that we don't normally see. Katherine, what's your take on Hard Knocks? You think it's going to happen? Do you think it's a good or a bad thing for this team?
Well, at first, I heard this when I was in Indianapolis, and I was very skeptical that it would happen because, first of all, you got the Rams, Los Angeles, they want to promote that. And then you have the Bills, which seems like the perfect team. The Ryan brothers, female coach, Ed Reed. I mean, it screams Hard Knocks to me. But I was talking to a coach, not a Saints coach, he's a coach up in Indianapolis, and he said he thought it was going to be the Saints. Now, whether he heard the report or he heard the chatter, that's pretty telling because he was pretty convinced. As a media member, I'm for it because I want to learn more about the team that maybe I didn't know. As just a spectator, I don't think that it would be that interesting because Peyton doesn't want to cut players on screen, which I respect. I respect that viewpoint, and I don't know why you'd force him to.
Right.
And I just don't know that they have the hook that would draw outsiders in. So why would you force a team to do it that doesn't want to, and that's not really, to outsiders, that exciting outside of maybe Peyton and Breeze?
Sure.
Not sure.
I look at it both ways as a positive or yes, I'm in for two reasons. One, as you said, for the get-go, I just want to see how Peyton's going to handle it.
Yeah.
That will be interesting.
From my standpoint as a media member,
I gotta tell you,
I'm going
that's
to love
where
this.
I'm at.
I have tossed out
Yes.
on the show,
That'll be
Katherine,
entertaining.
if
Yes.
I'm him, I wouldn't put it past him to have bathroom meetings. You know, it'd be, I'm going to call it a night, guys. Go into your room and then like get FaceTime. There's beautiful technology now,
Right.
you know, with iPads and iPhones. That's FaceTime secret meetings because you can't film once the door closes.
Right.
I mean, I know this guy's. I wouldn't put it past him to be unconventional like
I'm
that.
with you there.
He's going to enjoy making it difficult for him. That's going to
yeah,
happen.
you know it.
I'm with you. I think it's happening. I mean, he kind of hinted to it and said, "Oh, who are we kidding?" When at this season ending press conference
At
he
the
said,
Love Fest.
Yeah, and he goes, "Who are we kidding? If it's gonna." He knows it's coming. He knows it's coming.
Well, you
So-
remember what I said to him, right?
Yeah.
I said, so if we have Hard Knocks, are you just going to have a closed door? That'll be like an hour-long episode.
Right.
Because, I mean, that's the kind of thing he would want to do. He doesn't
Yes.
want these
Exactly.
things out. And to me, part of that is hilarious. And it'll
Right.
be interesting to see
Oh,
how
yes.
long he handles it
Right.
before he
And
kind
on
of
the other end,
snaps.
I do think it's interesting from this standpoint, right? The ratings in the NFL are so powerful because people want anything. I mean,
Yeah, that's
folks,
true.
you were just there. The combine
Yes.
is the most boring thing in the world to me, but
It's
they
not
cover
interesting at
that
all.
Yeah.
like it's something else. Like it's something else.
I'm
Look at
drawn
that
to it.
vertical.
You're
Yeah.
channel surfing. I might be watching a basketball
Absolutely.
game. I'm going to go flip over and see what's going on at the
Oh,
combine.
they got
Come on.
crawlers. They got new technologies where they superimpose this other guy's
Yeah.
run with this guy's run. They do all of that.
Well, did you see all over Twitter, there's this gif of Tom Cable falling asleep
Right.
watching the combine. And apparently he's part of the committee that kind of, I guess, watches all these things to make to see if they need to change anything. And I'm
Right.
like, well, if he's falling asleep,
it tells you
that
something.
tells you how boring
I
the
take it
combine
a step
really
further.
is.
I honestly wish they could follow a team, and I want to see it through the season. I think that would be great. Now, show
I'd
it
love
next
that.
year.
Yeah.
Like, show it the following year. Do like you do on anything else. You know, you shoot a movie now, Star Wars 2, it's coming out next year. I would love for them to be like, all right, fine, let's really make it interesting. Because I think coaches, and they're worried about that. Well, if it's next year's team,
Right.
how much can you really learn on it? I'm just talking about storylines
Sure,
and
right.
following
Keeping it going.
I can close my eyes right now and remember Rex Ryan telling a guy, go pick a fight, start a fight. He wanted him to go do that, right? Remember that one episode? You know, the other ones, whether or not they're eating, one about the number of kids they have. So I think it is interesting. And I think as a fan, you don't get to see what Katherine and I get to see a lot of times. And just players walking around
we
or
don't get
just.
to see everything either.
We don't,
so.
exactly. And that's what I mean.
Well, it's
I would
locked
like
down there
to
like the
sort of see
CIA.
that. Right.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
There's no
You
doubt.
know, and I think it's interesting to hear the conversations coaches have. But I think if you want to make it right and not make it to where teams are freaky about it, do it next year.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about free agency. Starts on Monday. Saints are about a little bit under $12 million under the cap right now. They can have some maneuvering to do still. They can, obviously, the Drew Brees contract, maybe going to Zach Strief, possible pay cut there, possible pay cut for Thomas Morstead. Katherine, how active do you think they'll be? Do you expect some last-minute moves to be able to get a little bit more under the cap? I know Jarvis Byrd is also maybe a candidate for restructure. What do you think happens?
I'm not sure how many moves they have left. Strief, a pay cut really wouldn't change his cap number that much. We've talked about his contract. I think you'd almost have to rip it up and do a new contract because his base salary is really low. But he said he would take one.
Yes, he did.
said he'd come back as a backup. So they could be talking that there because they might want to move on with Andres Pete, but I think they'll keep him. But I think that once they finish with Breeze, they'll have a lot of space, and I think that they will be active in free agency. Now, do I think they're going to go grab another Jarvis Byrd? Probably not. I think that they would try to be more cautious this time. That's come back to bite them a couple of years in a row now. But I think that they have a lot of holes to fill, and they need to fill it now. So guard, wide receiver, linebacker, you name the position, they need to find it.
Gus, your thoughts?
I think one of the things that is interesting is fans right now going, how can we go shopping, or what kind of free agency can we look at and try to expect if we don't know what kind of money we have. So everyone's following the breeze. You know, you got your phone everything. I know. I'm just waiting for the extension to come.
Sure.
But I think we have to remember too, the cap's up to what, 156.
Right, 155.
So yeah, 155, 156. It's higher than it was the last time Breeze restructured and things of that nature. They're what, 10, 11 mil under the cap right now. I don't know how many other moves you can do because, like Katherine said, how many more moves are sort of available, whether it's Spiller and all those guys. Almost cutting them is almost the same as keeping them.
Right.
So you almost hope that it just pans out and works out. And I just think this is it's going to be almost a mirror image, I think, of last year. You're not going to be a day one or couple of first few days, the first tier free agent sort of guys. I think it'll probably be, you know, the second tier sort of thing, bargain shopping sort of that nature, and try to find plug and play. I just still think this team tries to build through the draft primarily. But I just, I don't know. We'll see. Unless you get that extension done, and if you get an extra $10 million, well, then now you got about 20 to go to free agency. Now we're talking something different.
Right. But I had Sean Fazan of Fox 8 Sports on today, and he said Saints won't be shopping at Tiffany's. And my response was, well, you don't want them shopping at Big Lots either.
Right.
Okay? I mean, you know, you don't want the closeouts. You'd rather maybe let them shop at Walmart if you had to. And I think that's where they're going to be. I don't see a big splash here. They have struck out on big splashes over the last couple years. It'll be interesting to see where they go. But I got to think that, at least for as position goes, offensive guard's got to be a priority. I don't know if you want to go into the draft and be able to have maybe a rookie guard starting, protecting Drew Brees. So my guess is that's got to be one of the positions they're looking at. Laurinaitis came in this week, the former Ram linebacker, a guy that's averaged about 100 tackles a year, but I mean, he's a declining player, and I would hope that the Saints are not going to take a flyer on declining players. If they're actually going to get into this, get into a situation where maybe they're getting a guy with a little bit of an upside going forward. Your thoughts?
I think they've gotten into some weird pattern the last few years of picking up players that are at the end of their career, and they get to the Saints, and it's just their talent plummets. Right. It's actually kind of crazy. Jonathan Goodwin was done. He was a great player for the Saints, but second time around, he just got injured a lot. Right. Of course, Champ Bailey, that did not pan out. Brandon Browner. Right. Can you name a few more? I mean, I'm sure you could. I can't think of them right now. David Hawthorne wasn't old, but once he got away from the Seahawks, he didn't play like they thought. Victor Butler got hurt. So I could just go on and on. So I really think they need to, well, Kevin Williams is the exception. But
Agreed.
I think they need to stay away from these 33, 34, 35-year-old players that are just looking for one more paycheck. Yeah. Except maybe Anquan Bolden aside, he might still have another year in him. But still, I mean, the point is, go younger. I know that's not always the cheapest thing, but maybe they could find some younger guys that they could build on.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would not go for the older player that's looking, as you mentioned, for his last go around, his last paycheck, and maybe hoping you can squeeze one more year or 2 more years out of him at this point.
We just said it, and as Catherine's rattling off the list of names,
it's a long list.
Well, again, it's sort of like when we started the conversation as to why the Saints were 7-9 the last 2 seasons. It was a complete miscalculation on the talent that they had and where they were.
No doubt.
We had been hearing, you had written stories, we had talked about it on our shows, this championship window. We were under the same, I guess, delusion, really, at the end of the day. We went the first year at the Greenbrier. We all left there. This is a Super Bowl contending
we
team.
drank the Kool-Aid.
I mean, we chugged it. We
all
all were.
The players really drank the Kool-Aid.
Well, now look at it. Clearly, it was a miscalculation on what you had, talent-wise. The names you just said, all those moves, and Eric, you just said it, they're Band-Aids, and what you're hoping for is exactly what you said. One more year, few more games, because that's what teams that need one player or two away from a championship. This team is nowhere near a championship, and that's why I agree with Katherine. You kind of want to go that direction, but it's what you saw last year. They made a bunch of moves to acquire picks. I thought they were going to use them and move up and, package it. No, they kept them all.
Right.
So that tells me bringing in new scouts, keeping your picks, doing that, they're going to try to plug a hole here or two with some free agents that make sense. I think they're probably a little gun-shy and scared with some of the ones they've had. And I think they're just going to look. It's the draft. Sean said it this week at Indy. 4 or 5 years, right? He can see himself here 4 or 5 years. I think that's probably the way they go.
Right, we're going to get into that in a moment. But look, the draft has been the biggest problem with this team. We've talked about it on this show, our radio shows. You've written about it. You know, you
follow
can't
Catherine's mock draft.
Right,
It's pretty.
you can't go into an NFL season year after year and only hit on the 06 draft or looking at maybe this draft where you have more than one or two players that can contribute a draft. When you look around the league and you look at some of the teams now that are ascending to championship status and you look at how they built their teams, they built it through the draft. Look at Denver a few years ago. Look at Denver now, you know, and in terms of what they've been able to look at Carolina, how they built their team. Just going by the last two Super Bowl participants. So I think the Saints have learned a lesson there. I think that they at least on paper right now, they did a pretty good job last year with the draft. No real superstars, I don't think, coming out of that draft, but guys that'll be steady, that they can play for you for 10 years. I've said on this show and my radio show, this is a draft, I believe, especially when you look at your needs, how it coincides with the depth of the draft. This is a draft where you've got to get some guys that are going to come in and be the Jari Evans types, be the Marcus Colston types. Jari Evans, best at his position. Marcus Colston, an all-time player for the team. That's what I think you got to get out of this draft this year.
Well, I think they've been riding that 2006 draft for so long.
Until they couldn't ride it anymore.
Yes, exactly. People have overlooked just how bad some of the other drafts were. I haven't done the research yet, but the fact that 1 year after the 14 draft, they only had one player left, you could say Metairie, but they waived injured him. So they were willing to part with him if they had to. That's unbelievable, and you cannot do that. Now it puts them in the position where they have to hit on not only last year's draft, which I think they did, but this year's draft too, or else they're in trouble again. If you have another draft like 14, your franchise is set back for years. Now, they may have kind of fixed it with last year's draft a little bit, but you still got to hit on it. And when we talk mock drafts or we talk what they need, I go through almost every single position except maybe running back or quarterback. I mean, where you could go any position first round almost because they have so many holes to fill.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, we've talked about it, an average of one player per draft making an impact on this team since 06. That's not winning football. You can't win like that. And then you're riding that 2006 draft. You start to rob Peter to pay Paul. You're taking this their base salary. You're turning into a signing bonus. You're putting it at the end of the contract, and then you get to the end of the contract, and allow these guys that still have tread on the tires. You got to let them go because they become too expensive. Then what do you have to do? You got to go in. You got to get undrafted free agents to come in and fill holes, and then you're hoping that maybe you're getting lower picks in the draft that could come in because you can't afford anything. So it's been a recipe for disaster. And the hope is now, as they're trying to climb out of this salary cap hole, they start to realize that the draft is the lifeblood of an organization, especially when you've got a quarterback that's a top quarterback that you're paying so much of your salary cap to. You've got to hit on your drafts.
You know, the thing that's interesting, Eric, is you touch on what you're trying to still go off of and do that. And it's interesting to me because the one good thing about your time over in Indies, you got to see there is one area on this draft in the first 2-3 rounds, D-line.
Oh, yeah.
D-line and defensive players, throwing some linebackers there, so that's good. The Saints have got to get a defensive tackle. They need defensive end to kind of go with Cam. They've got to bolster that. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence here, the last couple of Super Bowl participants, much less winners. They can pressure the quarterback. They have a difference maker, a playmaker. Look, we all would love to have a Von Miller, Luke Kuechly. I'd like to be driving a nice German car and living by the lakefront. I get that, but you've got to have some sort of impact player on this team on defense. Cam Jordan's a nice player. I'm talking about an impact where on third down, the other team's going, where is that guy? They do that already, but I'm talking about I need to make, because he's going to stay up and make a play, even if he's guarded, even if he's double teamed.
Well, they're game planning on him from Tuesday on.
Yeah, and I'm not being ugly, but are you game planning against anybody on the Saints defense right now?
Nobody.
I'm like,
nobody. Huh? Come on. Seriously. I mean, no, I'm not trying to be ugly either, but no one. Nobody's game planning.
So
that's it.
Exactly.
You know, and if you shut him down, you don't have to worry about anybody else. So I agree with you, Gus, and I think that's part of the problem. That's why I say in this draft, got to be a Jari Evans there somewhere. There's got to be a guy that, man, when you look at this guy, you're going to say in a couple of years, God, he's the best at his position.
You know, and it's interesting, living in New Orleans and having grown up here, and, you know, being Louisianians, we're nostalgic. I mean, you know, we still talk about everything like it's back in the day. We still act like we don't like the change as a people. We still talk about the 26 draft in that group like, man, that's 10 years ago.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I was 30. You know, like, seriously.
You don't want to know how old I was.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's my point. It's like a lot has happened. And look, that's just, you got lucky in a Colston. Right. You got lucky with some of those players. Like, you're absolutely right when you said, if your philosophy is that you're going to roll the die or just give me a handful like in Yahtzee and hope continuously that your organization is going to succeed and compete for a Super Bowl based on low-end draft picks,
can't do it.
There's a reason people that do this for a living, and there's a reason you're a first rounder. Not do they all pan out? Of course not. No. We know that. There's first rounders that don't, and there's seventh rounders that do. Right. But more often than not, you're kind of in that area for a reason.
Yep, no doubt. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports each and every Thursday night right here on WLAE-TV at 6 p.m. with our live broadcast. Every Friday, you get two chances to catch us. 9 p.m. on Pelican Sports Television in the New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette markets, and right back here on WLE at 10 p.m. Gus Kattengell of ESPN 100.3, Katherine Terrell of NOLA.com are our guest. 866-3200 is the phone number. We'll come back. We'll take some phone calls on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile. You're watching WLAE, New Orleans Public Television. Find us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Katherine Terrell of NOLA.com, The Times Picayune, and Gus Kattengell of ESPN 100.3 are our guests tonight. Guys, last week on Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio talking to Sean Payton, as he always does, talking to the national media and giving them a little tidbit of what's going on here. Said that he envisions himself being here 4 to 5 more years, that he expects a contract to be done. He has 2 years left on his deal at $8 million a year. My guess is that he's talking about adding on to that contract, so maybe a 3 to 4 year deal, depending on what you're looking at going forward. 2 back-to-back 7-9 seasons. There was a situation at the end of the season where you can believe he was looking, you cannot believe he was looking, you can believe that he was shopped, not believe he was shopped. I believe that he was looking. I believe that the market was not there for him. That's my opinion. But the question is it deserving? Is it deserving where a guy that's got 2 years left on a deal, that for a team that's underachieved, for a team that, again, he's in charge of, he makes the final call, is always his, and he's allowed this organization to slip, now that he's focused, now that he's rejuvenated, that he should be rewarded with an extension?
Well, it's kind of amazing when you look at it. Since the end of the 2011 season, they've had one winning season, one playoff win, and he's going to get an extension. I think that he's a very smart man, and so is his agent, and they played this perfectly. Now, I think Payton is a great coach. I think the organization as a whole has made a lot of personnel mistakes that added to all of this, but Payton is part of that too. I don't hold him responsible for the Junior Galette signing. I think that was more of a front office thing, but you know, he has his hands in a lot of other things. So should they have given him an extension? I mean, do you want Sean Payton elsewhere, even with the bad seasons they've had recently? Do you want another coach? I mean, I think if you look at it that way, I think that they do want to lock him up. I mean, you could get someone else in there, and it could be so much worse.
Well, let me play devil's advocate for a moment, though. Suppose the bottom drops out. Suppose this year's another losing season, and then maybe still next year there's a losing season. Well, then all of a sudden you're four losing seasons in a row, but you've given this guy an extension.
That's a good point.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with having someone. The players have to do it. That they have to work for that next contract. That they have to show something in order to be rewarded with the next contract. And I agree with you. I said this when all this went down. At the end of the day, a focused Sean Payton. The Saints are much better off with him than without him. We don't need Sean Payton light. You don't need to go out and get a coach that was under Sean Payton because you want to have another Sean Payton.
Right.
No, Sean Payton is a guy that you want to be here. But I just feel like at this point it's just bad business. Let the guy. He's not going to be a lame duck next year. Finish out this season. If you still feel that you want him and you want that extension, give him the extension. He's got 2 years left on the deal, not one.
Like I said, I think he played this perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
I think he scared them enough that they want to lock him up.
Yeah.
Sean Payton is a very smart man,
Agreed.
so I think that he's happy and he got what he wanted, and I think you make a great point. Should you really reward just being okay?
Yeah. Mediocrity.
And you never know. I mean, Carolina surprised me this year. Maybe the Saints will surprise all of us, but right now, just before the draft, before free agency, it does not look like they're a team that's going in the playoffs. Now, ask me again in a few months, and maybe that'll be much different, but I don't know.
Based off last year, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Gus,
You
take.
You hold your cup and go, well played, sir.
That's
well
right, no
played.
doubt.
He did exactly what he was going to do, and we knew this. We saw it during the seasons. Reports started leaking after that Ofer start, and then a couple weeks later, another report.
All season long.
Exactly right. So, and it is exactly what you said. Did they scare them enough? Look, a Super Bowl buys you goodwill.
No
it
doubt.
does. But
Come on.
hey, Tom Coughlin won too, and he got literally thrown out the door. But I think
He
at
was
the
a little
end,
older, but
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I think at the end of the day, you look at it like this, though. What else is out there? I mean, you look at some of these coaches, some of these other teams that have made coaching decisions. I mean, look at the Niners. You know, they didn't get along with Hart. It's not even remotely close to the same organization in 2 seasons that way he's gone. You look at Carolina. I mean, Ron Rivera was out the door. He was fired 2 seasons ago, right? Or 3 now.
Right.
And he had a couple winning months in December. It just sort of built. And now it's had that. So
I agree with you, Gus, but let me say this. I think if you limit yourself to proteges of Sean Payton,
Right.
you're probably right. There are some really good coaches
I
out
hear
there
you.
in the collegiate ranks,
Right.
assistants. They found Sean Payton. You can find another one.
I
And I'm
agree.
not saying get rid of Sean Payton. I'm just
Right.
saying don't reward him right now with an extension.
what would be
Let's see
the
what happens at
difference
the end
in
of the
going
year.
one more year? Exactly, because he
Right.
said he has 2 years. And I think my only reasoning or rationale behind that would be this. If I didn't see some things different from a season ago, then I could totally be on board. The only thing, and again, maybe I'm fool's gold, and maybe I still got some Kool-Aid or something, right? But you did see going into last offseason, the hard look into the mirror, right?
Agreed.
They got some front office people
Right.
gone. They got some scouts done. He brought in 7 new coaches.
Yes.
He was like, we got to get back to who we were. They punted, right, using the punt, see what I did there? Big contracts in Gillette and Stills and other
That
things
was
like
hard
that.
to do.
They did. They swallowed
They
and
had-
said,
they had to bite the bullet
hey,
on it,
what is
right.
it, 21 mil in dead money this year by doing that? So I think if I'm in charge of the money here and I'm T-Benz, I'm like, all right, well, they at least got refocused, and now here's the plan. Okay, we're going to go back to what we did here. You just finished saying earlier in the show that some players thought this past training camp was one of the hardest that they've had. So it comes across to me as a refocusing, and now let's see what he's going to do here. And look, again, I go back to what he said at Indy. I can see myself here in 4 or 5 years. All right, well, that extension in 5 or 6,
Right.
it's probably 2 to 3
Right.
to make it 4 or 5. So it's not a massive extension. It's just enough for what maybe he looked at you and said, give me 3 years. I think we can go back in 3 to 4 years.
How much does Drew Brees have to do with this? Because again, you're looking to extend him. And will those extensions coincide with the coach and the quarterback? Talk about that. Talk about Joe Flacco's deal, because $22 million a year per average, $40 million guaranteed. As I mentioned on the radio show a little bit earlier this week, the Saints would probably like to be in a situation where they would like to go with a large base and maybe not as much of a signing bonus. I think Brees wants the signing bonus because that's the guaranteed money, and maybe less of a base. You know, the reason why the Saints would like to have the large base is, again, it's not guaranteed money, but it also gives them a little bit more flexibility down the line to turn that into a signing bonus to give them salary cap relief. What do you expect to happen here with Drew Brees?
Well, first of all, I think the Saints were very concerned about Brees after the 2014 season. I think they privately wondered if he was declining, you know, if he was the same quarterback he'd been, because he threw a lot of interceptions in really inopportune times. The Detroit game, he had 17 interceptions. So I think that they didn't know, but then he comes out this year and he plays really well, even though he got hurt. But those are kind of freak accidents, and I think they realized, okay, you know, he does have a couple years left. But as you saw with Peyton Manning, any quarterback can just start declining at any time. So I think you're right. I think that they would like to have a contract set up so that they can, I guess, cut ties if they have to. But Brees is an extremely smart businessman. He will not just roll over for them. So that could be why the extension hasn't happened yet. And I think that he's looking at Flacco's extension too and thinking, well, Joe Flacco is going to make more money than I am.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Brees is a businessman, and he's one of the best quarterbacks of all time.
Yes.
So I think that he and Peyton would probably like to end their careers in New Orleans together.
Yes.
So I think they'll make it happen, but it's not going to come cheap.
Yeah.
And he's not going to take a hometown discount.
No, I don't think it is either.
Yeah, I absolutely think Drew
and then we'll go to the
Brees-
phone lines. Go ahead.
I absolutely think Drew Brees had a lot to do with whether or not Sean was to be here or not. There's no doubt they are tied and married, and they will walk off into the sunset together, hopefully with another Lombardi. That's probably the conversation
That's
they've
the
had.
plan, I'm
There's
sure.
no doubt. And to answer your question, you know, or your statement about do they want the front end, the agent wants both.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I mean, he wants $20 million a
Yeah.
year, and he wants 40 to 44. What Flacco got, I think, is 40 with the signing bonus and 4 with his salary that's guaranteed in that. So, yeah, he's going 20 and, we'll start at 40. We're good. And then, you know, if they laugh at him, he goes, oh, and by the way, remember, we are the best player on your football team.
We are the marquee player on your
So
football
that,
team.
I mean, it's really
couldn't
that
do this without
easy.
me.
Right.
Exactly. So that's it. I mean, you go back to what we just said in that last segment there, the draft picks, the lack of start. By the way, he is still the best player on your football team. He is still the only way you get to the playoffs. You got to help him, or, you know, but without him, what do you got?
Right.
You know, and as the days clip, we're in March, as the days tick, he's just going to sit there and
Dang.
relax.
It's true.
What are you going to do? You going to hand it over to Flynn or
Well,
Garrett Grayson?
And you know you don't want him to play for $30 million salary cap either. You don't want that cap hit.
But if worse comes to worse, that's what's going to happen.
yeah.
But, you know, and I think either the players or the coaches once said this, but as long as they have Drew Brees, they always have a shot
Agreed.
to get to
Exactly
the playoffs.
right. It's true.
You can replace any other player on that team, but if you replace him, unless you have the next coming of Aaron Rodgers, then they're through.
And
At
he
least for
also
now.
is a selling point for the team as well.
I was gonna say
when
the
they
same
go to the
thing.
free agents, they're saying, we got a guy that won a Super Bowl and can get us to another one, okay? And that's a selling
Don't
point.
think that
there.
that'll affect the ticket sales, too. If you don't have him and you got some guy you have no idea and they go back to losing
Yes.
again.
Oh, there's no doubt.
I'm just-
Well, I mean, no
just saying,
disrespect
I mean,
to Garrett Grayson.
No, I mean,
or
we
to
don't
Matt
know.
Flynn,
Yeah.
but nobody's filling up the dome to see those guys.
No, Drew Brees is still he's your, you know, when the promos for the network TV shows come out, this Sunday, the Saints, and there's Drew Brees throwing a pass. I mean, it's Drew Brees.
No doubt. Let's head to the phone lines, 866-3200 to Homa and Greg. Hey, Greg. Greg, you with us?
Question for you. At our draft picks at number 12 or 13, I can't remember what it is.
It's 12.
Is there a can't-miss guy that we should draft that's going to start immediately and contribute? And if not, what is the thought about maybe trading back down and getting more draft picks and getting those diamonds in the rough? And I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you, Greg. Gus, I'll take you first.
I honestly think at everything that we've been able to look, and, you know, I don't have the mock drafts 1.5 and all that, but Katherine will be able to get a little better. But you can go maybe 5 back. I think you'd still get a pretty good defensive tackle. So I just think, I look at it, you're right. I mean, where do you start? I mean, guard is pretty big, you know what I mean? And that's when you go back, we talk about the 06 draft, and we talk about the Super Bowl team, there was one very big common denominator. That left guard, left tackle, and center all went on to get big contracts at their position that played on that offensive line for the Saints. Drew Brees was protected. That's why that offense looks so good. So you can go a line there. Would be popular if you go, but you've got to address that D line. So you could. I mean, from Shaq Lawson, pick one from Alabama, whoever is there, you know, that you've seen that can go there. I think you can probably trade a little further back and still get that defensive tackle, but I think Katherine at 12, it's going to be a defensive tackle, whether it's the Clemson guy or Alabama guys.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Robinson from Alabama.
You're
I
not.
think a lot of people are mixed on him, but I'm not a draft expert. I think that if you're going to take a guard, then you do move back. I don't think you take a guard at 12.
Right.
I think that you could sit tight at 12 and take a defensive tackle. I think if Miles Jack was on the board at 12, you run to the podium and you take him, and I think he would be a can't-miss guy. I think the only way you take Treadwell is if they go by the board and he's just the top guy still above the line. I know people would be asking, what are they doing? But some teams go by the board, and that's how they draft. That's how the Ravens draft.
Yes.
But is there a can't-miss prospect? No, not really. I don't think that this is one of those classes.
I'll put it to you this way. I would be highly disappointed and highly critical if they went offense in the first round. I mean, honestly, whether it be offensive guard or wide receiver, I think those are, as I mentioned before, I think free agency is the way you go for the offensive guard. If you want to get a young guard, you can get that in the middle rounds. Wide receiver, again, it's not a deep draft for wide receivers, but I think you can find one in the middle late rounds that maybe come in to contribute, or maybe go and get one of these guys that are middle of the road guys. They're here in the NFL right now.
Right.
They're not going to cost you a lot. Veteran guy that can come in and fill the role you need them to fill. You need defense, and this is a strong defensive draft, whether it's on the defensive line or at the linebacker position. Two positions you need have a critical need, and I think the fan base would be upset. I think those of us that watch this team right now would be very upset if ultimately they went offense in the first round. I don't care who's out there at this point. I like Treadwell, I do, but when the need is out there, when you can't stop the opposing team, but yet you're the number one offense in the NFL, that's a huge problem. They've got to upgrade this defense, and they got to throw every draft pick they have that they can spare at the defensive line, linebackers, heck, even cornerback too, because of the unknowns right now.
Lewis has been injured a lot
I could see
lately.
them going cornerback at 12. I know people don't agree with me. I almost put a cornerback at 12 in my mock. You could say, well, it's not a need. Well, I disagree.
I think
Well, there's
that,
unknowns. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen with P.J. Williams. The kid from Georgia last year with Swan.
He had 3 straight games, 3 straight concussions.
So, I mean, how do you count on him? Keenan Lewis, even though I'm hearing he's working hard, he's trying to get back in shape. We don't doubt his heart.
Nope.
But again, he's been injured over the last couple of years. Can he sustain? And look, we like the Delvin Breaux story, great story. But even the cornerback position is a position to me of need, but maybe not as much to me as I look at that defensive line, a playmaker on the outside. I mean, do you really put all your eggs in Davis Tull's basket coming back? Right. I mean, at this point, that's got to be an upgrade. And bodies. The more players you put out there, young players that you know you have a better chance of hitting. So I would be look, offense, middle rounds. I don't think you have a problem with it, but it's got to be a defensive draft.
I agree. I mean, I just don't think, like I said, the only way I see it is if they go strictly by the board. But I really, even then, I mean, you have to go defense. You have to, because people will say, well, why not Treadwell? And their offense moved the chains without a superstar outside of Brandon Cooks, but it didn't matter. I mean, Drew Brees threw 7 touchdowns against the Giants, and they still almost lost.
Right.
So you have to fix the defense, or it
exactly
doesn't matter.
What you just said. I mean, you can only keep counting on the fact, because in years past, when he was younger and you had better receivers and you could score, you were winning games like that.
Right.
And in the last 2 years, you're 7-9 because you can no longer win games like that. It is literally that easy. And again, I go back to what I said earlier this hour. It's not a coincidence the participants in the Super Bowl the last several years have a defense that can come up with a play when they need to.
Yep.
The Saints cannot come up with a play if you pay them to, which you actually are, and we're paying to see, from third downs, they can't get off the field to first and I can go on and on. It's frustrating. It says I'm going to lose my hair. I mean, my thing is, it's a joke. It has to happen. It has to be fixed, especially if I'm going to invest 20 to 25 mil to keep Drew Brees, to pay Sean Payton an extension. Well, then that better be trying to go to Lombardi.
Yeah.
And that's not happening with the defense you have right now.
And I know it's a copycat league, but you got to look around and you got to see what other teams have done and how they built these defenses up. And you need playmakers.
I need speed, man.
I mean, again, we saw an increase in the speed last year on this team.
Little better.
No doubt about it, because again, they were plotting horses the year before. But they've got to get better. They've got to get better on the defensive side of the ball. Let's head back to the phone lines. 556-9696. Larry is in Kenner. Larry, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Larry.
Hey, Eric, thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for calling.
Great panel, man. Just every week, man. You just outdo yourself every week.
On them.
Drew Brees, he's fine. He's good. But how far into the draft would you go before you get a receiver to take the place of Marcus Colston? Hats off to Marcus. We appreciate everything he did for us. He was a great player.
Yes.
And our defense was gelling at the end of the season. Y'all know that. So how far into the draft would you go before you end up picking a wide receiver to take Marcus's place? I'll listen to your answers.
Thank
Good
you, Larry.
night. Love you, Eric.
Appreciate it, Larry. Thanks so
Hey,
much.
Larry.
Guys, I want to get into Marcus Colston next, but talk about, I'm saying middle rounds. Me. If I'm the guy in the room, I'm middle rounds. But Katherine?
Well, I think you fix that in free agency. Honestly,
Right.
I'm not really impressed with this class of wide receivers. I'm not impressed with the free agent class either. But
Right.
I mean,
Right.
that it is
Right.
what it is. I don't think any earlier than the 4th round and maybe the 5th. I think you just have to go defense, unless the board falls in some weird kind of way. But there's no standout receiver that you have to grab. In
You
this
in
draft.
Indianapolis, the slowest times we saw for receivers, what, in maybe the history of the combine, right?
There was one that Teron Armstead would have beat running the 40.
my.
The receiver from Mississippi State, he ran a
Wow.
4.9.
Wow.
I completely agree with Katherine 100%. The only way you move up is if, and I think the Saints have to look at receiver in this draft in a very narrow way. How does it fit this offense, and what am I looking for? Am I looking for a tall receiver? You know, I mean, there was a lot of hope for Brandon Coleman to be, but I thought he was going to do a lot more than he did. You saw him kind of come on towards the end. But that's my point. Am I looking for a big receiver? Am I looking for a possession receiver, a big body, almost like a tight end sort of hybrid? Because that's something that you can think about too. Watson had a great year, but the dude's like 45, 50, right? I mean,
It's only 35.
right, that's my point, though. It's like, so, I mean, Josh Hill is not the guy.
Right.
So maybe I'm looking at, maybe not speed. Cooks has got my speed. The other guys, maybe I'm looking for a receiver / tight end sort of guy that's 6'5",
Hybrid.
6'6", can give me some possessions, can give me first downs. I'm not looking them to blow the top off the defense. I think it's going to be a very specific search for either a receiver or tight end in the draft for the Saints.
Jack is in New Orleans. Jack, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Jack.
How are you guys doing?
Doing great,
Good, man.
Jack. Thanks for the call.
Well, listen, I've been enjoying listening to you guys talk, but this is the interesting thing. Everybody wants to go with the big uglies because we know the offensive line and defensive line is how to build a football team. But where the Saints are sitting, we got to talk about linebackers. We had a good draft pick last year with our first rounder. I'm personally very happy with him. But the guy I'm intrigued with, two guys specifically, and I think you can get them in round 1 and round 2. I just don't know if New Orleans is going to take the risk. Miles Jack from UCLA with the meniscus tear. You put him in the middle, that defense, that is absolutely filthy. But what about Jalen Smith? I mean, this kid probably is a top 5 pick. He's like Luke Tinkley without the knee injury. Given all the things you talked about with Peyton, all the things y'all talked about, with the rest of the defense, let's face it, anybody who's a realistic Saints fan knows we're not going anywhere probably for the next year or two. But the thing is, the fastest way to get better is to improve a defense. And with the kids we got, Coleman can probably replace Colson, and they'll probably pick someone up that Brees can turn into something that's pretty decent on offense. I just think that with this draft, I mean, we're talking 4/5 heavy in defense.
Yes.
These linebackers have got me salivating.
Yes. Thank you for the phone call, Jack. I think the only thing about Smith is you worry about the nerve damage, right? I mean, not just the injury, because, again, as you mentioned, Jack's got the meniscus tear. You know he's going to come back from that. But the situation with Smith is you're worried about the nerve damage, and putting a high pickup for a guy that may have a debilitating injury, that's the key there. Katherine?
I
like them both, by the way.
I know.
But I like them both healthy.
I think Smith is a great player. I think he might be the best player in this draft. But I just remember talking to him at the Combine, or he was at the podium, and every time he got asked about the injury, he just kind of tried to skirt around it. He contradicted himself, and he said there wasn't nerve damage, and then he said there was, and it just kept going back and forth, and you got the sense there's something really wrong. Then the reports came out that there is nerve damage. It can be serious. I just think in the Saints position, you got an old quarterback. I mean, let's face it. You have a few years with him. and you have to hit on your drafts. You just can't take him unless for some reason he's in the 3rd round or the 4th round. And there are teams that are in that position. The Patriots could afford that, but I just don't think the Saints could. Not in the position they're in right now,
Yeah, I think
which is
if you're
unfortunate.
I think you're like the Panthers or something like that, Denver or something like that.
Yes.
You have linebacking depth and you have that, you can. It's what Sean said going into last year. You remember this, Katherine? I need players that can play now at the draft.
Right.
It literally is that easy.
No more projects.
Right. If he feels like that last year, I don't see him. It's just it's too valuable. You're right. 3, 4, 5. I can maybe even live with that.
Oh no! If he drops to the 3rd round, you run to the podium.
Of course.
Yeah,
He's a
you
great
cannot
player.
do it at
Right.
12.
No.
You cannot do it.
And
at
I don't think you can do it with your 2nd round pick.
I agree with you.
Unless you bring him in and you let somebody else doctors look at him, because I'm not really high on the Saints or Pelicans medical staff, okay?
Right.
You let somebody else look at him and they tell you, look, this guy's going to be fine. If Dr. Andrews tells me he's going to be fine, then I'm cool with it.
Yeah, Dr. Andrews, I would need to know
Okay?
for sure. From him.
But that's it. I get
It's a
Jack,
high
and
risk.
I agree with
Yeah.
Jack. You need linebackers.
But I agree
There's
with
no
the
doubt.
caller, though. Linebacker, I still think it's going to be.
Yes.
Because I'm still interested in where Kikaha is going to be able to go. I think Anthony's still nice. You touched on Laurinaitis earlier. I think he still wants to see if he's going to get more money. I think the Saints probably gave him an offer, and he probably didn't like it. So he said, I'm going to wait around.
Well,
but
I hope he keeps waiting and keeps moving, because I think he's on the tail end of his
I still think
career.
the Saints absolutely will be looking at linebacker.
Me too. Guys, we only got about 2 minutes left. I do want to talk about Marcus Colston. Your thoughts on the Quiet Storm and what he gave to this, not just organization, to the city as well.
Well, obviously, it was something we all did see coming. When he saw us the last day of availability, he said, "No, thank you. I don't want to talk. I know what you want to talk about," and politely declined. And of course, we were going to ask him, "Are you going to retire?" He has meant so much to the organization, and that's just one of the greatest stories you can tell. I mean, any kid that wants to make an NFL, you tell them about Marcus Colston and how anyone can do it, and he's just been great to watch, and it's unfortunate.
And great to cover too, right?
Oh yeah, I mean he's so smart.
Right.
I wish that he talked more,
Right.
but no, he's been great to watch over the years.
I'll put it as simple as this. If you were going to have like a snapshot, in college you always have a media guide. It's always like the upcoming season's a senior or star player. If you were going to say the Peyton tenure, and someone's going to write a book on it eventually, at center will be Sean, pursed lips, squinty eyes, Drew Brees, big eyes with the eye black, he's about to throw, and right next to him is going to be Marcus Colston. Yeah. The change of culture that Sean Payton wanted to bring in did. He's the poster child for it, right? Quiet, unassuming, team first, hard worker, performer, you name it. I mean, but that was him. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about Twitter. It wasn't about any of it. It was, I'm going to go out and do it. And he's most reliable. He was the security blanket, made big catches. I mean, he was exactly what Sean Payton wanted in that locker room to change. That's why he'll be right there. Maybe you put Vilma and, Fujita on that same thing in terms of turning it around. Because you close your eyes, he was absolutely as important as anyone else.
Yeah, as we close, and I apologize, we didn't get to the Pelicans or the Tigers today.
We can right now.
Well,
no.
There you go.
That's it. We're done.
Reliability. You mentioned it. I mean, that's it. And the other thing, he got us. He got us. He understood that in 06 to 09, even to 11, this was bigger than a football team. This was a city that was trying to recover, and he got that. And he said that in his love letter to New Orleans, and I think he'll be ever revered for that. And once again, it goes to show you, Eric Martin, Joe Horn, Danny Abramowitz, Marcus Colston, all either 7th round picks or undrafted free agents.
Wow.
They don't have to be first round draft choices to make an impact on this team. Gus Kattengell, Katherine, Terrell, thanks so much for being with us here on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE at 10 p.m. Also, in the New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette markets at 9 p.m. on Pelican Sports Television. That's every Friday night. You can catch me on the radio, 990 a.m. WGSO, 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. You can catch me on the TuneIn Radio app, which is a great app to be able to download for your smartphone or your tablet. It's a free download. You can take it with you anywhere. And, of course, you can check us out, the podcast or the live broadcast at ericasher.com. All the previous episodes of the award-winning Inside New Orleans Sports can be seen at ericasher.com as well. Special thanks again to our guests, Katherine, Terrell, and Gus Kattengell. Also to the WLAE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Kenny Juneau, Philip Williamson, Naila Jones, and my director, William Hill. New Orleans, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you right back here next Thursday night, 6 p.m. for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. Good evening.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is the first place award winner of the 2015 New Orleans Press Club's Excellence in Journalism Award for the category of Best TV Sports Show.